Okay. Okay. Um, Welcome everyone to the training webinar series, Eyefinity Encompass, Going Paperless in Your Practice, Simplify, Secure, and Streamline presentation. Thanks so much for joining us today. We look forward to your questions throughout the presentation. You can enter them by clicking on the Q&A button at the top of your screen. My name is Marianne Giorgio, and it is my pleasure to be with you today to introduce Jonathan Barfield. Jonathan has over 16 years in education and 11 years in healthcare IT. He is a trainer at our Eyefinity education conferences, on-site and hands-on session. He is a United States Air Force veteran and an alumni of the University of Georgia. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I've been with Eyefinity for quite some time now, so I've probably worked with quite a few with you. What we are going to be covering today, three specific types of forms, okay? Auto letters, consents, and waivers, okay? So auto letters can be used on both your browser or your iPad, whereas the consents and waivers are all iPad functions, and we'll get more into the specifics of those here in a little bit. We're going to start with auto letters. We're first going to cover how auto letters are sent during a visit. We're also going to cover document management, how to add contacts, and then we will go over the iPad functions. We'll also be going into Firm Admin to go over the customization of all these functions. All right, so let's dive in. And give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about this. We got a lot of different things to share. And okay, can I get a verification that we are viewing our browser EHR?
I can see it.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, so like I said, first we're going to talk about auto letters. What are auto letters? Auto letters are faxes, okay, that you can send to a contact. These could be referrals. These could be diabetic ocular letters, et cetera, et cetera. The types of letters you send, totally up to you. Like I said, we're going to jump into Firm Admin. There are some base letters in here if you've never created, but you can also just create as many letters as you would like for whatever reason, okay? So before we send letters, you must have contacts in the system. Where do you add contacts? Right up here on Document Management. Okay, so we can click here, or we can go down to Manage Referral Contacts. Okay, so we're in our training environment. We only have 2 contacts. We're just like you. We're a new office. We're just getting started. All right, so to add contacts, very simply, I'm going to hit Add Contact if it's a singular contact. We also have an institution if you're referring out to like a surgery center, something like that. All right, to add a contact, very easy. Okay. I'm going to click Add Contact. Ideally, what you want to use is the NPI lookup. Okay, a lot of people don't notice this sitting here. Instead of going down and entering the information, you can click here. It defaults to the state that your office is in, and you can just type a last name, hit search, and obviously there's a lot of Lees in California. I am not going to add these because these are real providers, and I've already added a test user in here. But if you're adding from scratch, all you need is a last name, a first name. You need a specialty, all right? So any specialty from this list, you would just simply click on it. And at a minimum, you need a fax number. Without a fax number in here, what we are about to go over means nothing. Okay, you must have a fax number. So not a lot of information you need at a minimum. Last name, first name, specialty from this list, and a fax number. Okay, once you have that, you will have contacts and you will be able to send any type of letter you build to these contacts. All right, so how do we send these letters? Okay, so before we go into sending all types of letters, I want to first focus on our referral letter. Okay, the referral letter, and there are thank you for referral letters, have special they have special functionality attached to them that no other letters that you build or that are in the system will have. There's two ways to send these letters. And depending upon if you're using the browser or the iPad, which one you use will dictate, be dictated by the system that you're using. All right, we'll get into that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a patient. I've already got a patient. It's me. All right, and I've already got a visit in here. This patient has some cataracts. All right, and these cataracts right here, let's say they've gotten to a point where I'm ready to refer this patient out. Okay, so one way to send out this referral letter is to scroll down. All right, and I've already added it. That was me testing it. I'm going to delete it. So I have my age-related cataracts, and I'm ready to refer this patient out. I'm going to go ahead and hit Add Plans. And you can see my referral is sitting right here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this referral and I'm going to click Save. All right, and now I'm going to click Resume. So in here, you're going to see all the different contacts that you have. Okay, so I'm going to choose the contact that I would like to send it to. All right, and then I would hit Queue Referral Fax. This is a very important little note about this. You can only queue up this fax, and I'm going to show you here in a second how you send it from document management. This will impact how you use this letter on the iPad. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and queue the fax referral. So now it's in here. To send this letter, I must scroll up to the top and come to document management. This is where the iPad will be a little different. You do not have access to document management on the iPad. You can still send the letter, all right, and we'll go over that here in a little bit, but you won't be able to send it like I just did, queuing up via the referral letter and then come into document management. You would come to View Faxes Pending Approval, and you would be able to check the box and hit Approve and Transmit. All right. So that's one way to send the referral letter. The next way is how you will send all other letters along with the referral. Okay. So back into my visit. And we have this Create Auto Letters. Keep in mind, if you have a smaller screen or your view, this does scroll. A lot of times you won't see this sitting right here. It'll be underneath all this. There is a scroll bar right here. Be sure to scroll that over. So Create Auto Letter. This is how you can send all letters, including the referral. This is how you can send referrals from the iPad. You do have access to Create Auto Letter on the iPad. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Create Auto Letter. All right. So first thing it asks for is my to. All right. I have my auto letter, test, contact. I'm going to come into my template. And I'm going to choose the outbound referral for today. There are some defaulted. You will see all of these defaults in there, but we'll go over how to customize here in a little bit. Template, you can have different templates, and I'll show you how to build these. And what the header template does is it puts a different header. This would be something you would use maybe if you have multiple offices, okay? And I'll show you how this populates. We'll say we're at Surfside today. All right, and so here's my letter. Notice the smart links in these, okay? Today's date, who you're sending it to, dear, who you're sending it to. I would like to refer a patient to you. I saw it pulls in patient's name on visit date for, and here's your chief complaint. This is your HPI. And here are your impressions and plans. Okay. If I want to add more information, 4+, any type of information you can add in here. If there's any irrelevant information, all right, you can just come in here and you can delete it out. So maybe I don't want that in there. I can delete it out. Okay. If I have any attachments, maybe I had some photos, and you can do this to any of our letters, any type of photos or imaging. If I have it in the attachments, I can click add remove, and I can add those attachments to this. Down at the bottom, I have a bunch of check boxes. Okay. Include HIPAA cover sheet. If I don't know where this fax machine is in this office, it's always good to cover up that patient's information. Include face sheet. The face sheet's good if you want that office that's receiving it to really quickly have access to the patient's insurance information or their address, phone number, all of that good stuff. Visit summary. Okay, so I'm going to show you how the visit note goes along here, and then include dot body diagram. Not very common for us to use in the ocular world. I'm going to go ahead and hit print view so we can view what we'll send. All right, so here is my face sheet. All right, for my fax. It's covering up, not my face sheet. This is my cover to cover up my HIPAA cover sheet to cover up any patient information. My next is my letter. Okay, so you can see my letter is in here. This is the letter we just saw. And then I have my patient information. Okay, you can see the date of birth, all of that information. And then as I scroll down, you'll get into the visit note. Notice it says preliminary. Okay, so unless this visit is finalized, it will say preliminary. And I'll show you where the auto letters function is on a finalized visit here in a second. All right, so if I'm happy with all of this, I'm going to hit back. And if I would like to save this upon sending, I'm going to go ahead and check this. And now I'm going to hit fax. That's going to fax that off to that contact. All right. For a finalized visit, let me go back to my patient. So let's say this visit is finalized and I would like to send a letter. Could be any letter. Notice we don't see that option here. Now, when I go to actions, here's the letter, and it'll be the same thing that we just saw, except that visit note will not have preliminary documented across it. All right. So how do I verify that these have been sent? Back up in document management. I'm going to go to manage auto letters. So we have pending approval. Okay, this is where we'll see if you queue up letters, you won't see any pending authorizations, and then you're sent. Okay, you also can't receive faxes to Eyefinity EHR. So you're going to see your sent, and you'll see, obviously, this is a training environment, and this is a fake. So this one says processing. Once it's successful, it will say successful. If it does not go through, and this has no circuits because there is no fax attached to this training environment, but if it does go through and there is an issue and it knows what the issue is and correct number, it will give you that information here. But hopefully it says processing, and then you come here and it says completed. All right. So before we go and share the iPad, just to reduce the amount of going to the iPad sharing, coming back here, I want to jump into Firm Admin and go over customizing these letters. We'll also go over the customization of adding consent forms, waiver forms. That way, when I go to share my iPad, we'll have all that there, and we're not jumping back and forth. It seems sharing it during these webinars causes the biggest problem. So I'm going to go ahead and log out. All right. And I'm going to come here, and I'm going to log into my Firm Admin. Okay, so for our auto letters, I'm going to scroll down, and we have faxing and auto letters right here. Okay, so manage fax templates. All right, this is where you're going to come and you will manage all your faxing templates. Let me go ahead and click here. And these are all the faxes that we just saw. Okay. I'm going to start with our outbound referral. Maybe you want to customize, you want to remove information from there. I'm going to come over and click modify. It's going to look a little weird. You know, we got all these at links, you know, at patient name. These are all those links that are pulling in that specific information from that visit. Okay. You can customize this. Up here, you have all these tools, kind of like a Word document, you know, all kinds of different tools. To the far left over here are our visit specific links that we can put in here. So patient name, patient address, visit date, visit exam, all kinds of impressions and plans. I can have VAs and IOPs, maybe my diabetic letters. I want the VAs and IOPs documented. Any tests that were performed, wearing prescriptions, refractions, final RXs. I can add any of these links. And if that information is entered in the visit, it will populate that information. And then I have miscellaneous. This is your formalities at from, at to, at current date. Okay. So how these work, if there's any information in here that you absolutely do not want, okay, you can come in here, just put your cursor in here and delete it. Okay. Any information that you do want, so let's say I want, VAs and IOPs in here. I can come click here. It just adds that link directly where your cursor is. And then you're going to keep free typing. Okay. Just to show you, we'll build another one. We'll start to build one from scratch here in a little bit. All right. So you have a defaulted diabetic letter in here. Okay. But this is a very generic letter. Okay. If I come over and click modify, this is probably one of the more popular ones. We know a lot of the doctors like to send diabetic letters to primary care providers and after those visits. So what I've seen a lot of doctors do, okay, is instead of having this default in add impressions and plans, you might notice that there's the impressions and plans. It's very helpful. It brings in the diagnosis and what you did for that, but it doesn't really bring over specific findings like no diabetic retinopathy with diabetic or macular edema. So what a lot of doctors will do is they'll take this template and they'll make two separate templates. Okay. So maybe after the impressions and plans, I'm going to make this template and I'll rename it with macular, diabetic retinopathy. And then I'll have one without. Okay. So I'm going to just default my information. Whatever you would like in here. All right. So I'm going to make this, with all right. And then I'm going to make another one that's the complete opposite. And a very nice tip, you can go ahead and just copy this. All right. And I'm not going to save this because this is a training environment, but once I'm ready to build my other ones, I'm going to come in here and now I'm going to paste it. All right. And it has the links in here and these links will work. Now I'm going to remove this. And now I'm going to make it the opposite. And I'm going to put a name that's without. Okay. That way, when I'm sending a letter, it's either with or without, and then any other irrelevant information that you would like in there. All right, so that's the whole workflow for auto letters. Okay, really the thing I want you to, and we're going to share the iPad and I'll show you where all the same functions are. Really the biggest thing is that referral plan. Okay, if you're using the browser, use that referral plan. You can send that via document management. If you're using the iPad, if you just use the referral plan, you would have to go log in on browser, but I'll show you how you can send it via just the auto letters function. Okay, before we go and share our iPad, let's talk about consents and auto letters. Okay, consents and waivers, sorry. So if you are not using an iPad for either the EHR app or the kiosk, you will not be using these. All right. So what's the difference between a consent and waiver? So consents are signed on the iPad EHR app where you're inputting visits. You're seeing a patient and you need them to sign some type of consent. That could be, punctal plugs, anything like that. I need you to read and I need you to sign this consent to perform this procedure. You would bring that up. They can read it and they can sign it. Waivers present on the kiosk. If you don't know what the kiosk is an iPad app where the patient checks in your office. You tell them to go sign in on the iPad and they would sign in and they can fill out past medical history, ocular history. If you have waivers in here, they will be presented with those waivers. Common ones would be HIPAA, billing forms, things like that. They can read and sign while they're doing the kiosk. And just from experience, I have seen offices that do not use the kiosk, but they keep iPads handy. And when patients do need to sign, they have they'll log in on an iPad EHR app, and maybe they don't use the iPad specifically for visits, but to just reduce paper load and uploading to attachments, they'll have techs just log in, find the patient on the iPad, and just use the consents for HIPAA, for whatever you want. So even if you're not using the kiosk, you can do any of those inside of consents. It'll just be in the EHR app. Okay, so I have seen some offices do that. To build these, they are incredibly simple. Okay, so we'll build a consent first. You can see we already have one in our training environment. Okay, so I'm going to add a consent form. So if you have these documents in a form where you can cut and paste, that's by far the easiest. So I conveniently do, you can't see it, but I have it, copy. And let's do a punctal plug. All right. And then I'm going to copy this next section. So hopefully you have these documents in a form where you can cut and paste, or you can, free type it all. Just 3 fields. All right. And then my legal information. There you go. And that's it. Okay. Categories, you probably won't have that many consents. You can assign categories to them. There's already some built in here. But I wouldn't see that you would have that many consents where you need to have a category assigned to them. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And there we go. Now we have 2. And I'll show you how these are filled out on the iPad here in a little bit. Okay. Waivers are built exactly the same way. Okay. So let's build a waiver. All right. We already have one in here. All right. And I'm going to put a HIPAA in here really quickly. I got my cut and paste. Copy. There we go. We're not going to fill out the full thing. We'll just put some information in here. And then HIPAA forms are pretty long usually. And there we go. Okay, so display at all facilities. Okay, so if you have multiple locations, hopefully you want this display. If not, you can specify. This gives you a drop down. Now I can choose whichever was this facility I want. We'll leave it as that. Categories, once again, if you want to assign categories. And then frequency. So this is important. We didn't have this with consents because consents, you make the decision, you manually bring it up. Here on the kiosk, you decide how many times you need this presented to the patient. So you have never, once per year, every 6 months, one time only, or every visit. I'm going to go ahead and set this to every visit, and I'm going to save it. All right. There is an option to can be declined. If the patient does decline on the kiosk, it kicks them out. Okay. So if it's something you definitely want them to sign, I would not check this because you want them to fill that out. Okay. So let's go and hopefully very, very quickly share my iPad. Can I get a verbal verification? We are viewing my iPad.
I can see it, Jonathan.
That's perfect. Okay, so first I will show you. We'll log in on the kiosk. All right, so I just activated myself. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And this is where I should probably change the date in here for these sessions so you guys don't know. Okay, so if you've never seen our kiosk, I'm not going to go through it all. I just want to show you how once we get here, here are my waivers. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click here, and the patient would read all of this. And when they get to the bottom, they're going to select sign. They're going to sign that. I'm going to do my financial consent. Sign. There you go. And then they'd hit next. And then they would go through the rest of the steps on the iPad. Like I said, the kiosk will take them through insurance information. It'll take them through their past medical history. You can see right here, they would make their way through and fill out all that information. We're not going to get in that today, but that's what it does. All right, so that's the kiosk, and that is waivers. Now we're going to jump into our EHR app, and you can see I'm already logged in. So let's start with auto letters. Let's jump back to auto letters before we go into consents. Okay. So with auto letters, okay, like I said, you can use the referral plan. Like I have right here, I have this referral. I haven't added a contact. I would click resume. I would add a contact to this and it would queue it up. But there's no way for me to go into document management. It's not in here. There's no way for me to go to send that referral letter. Okay. So using the iPad, keep that in mind. You can use that referral plan still. And a lot of doctors I know like to use that referral plan. That does queue it up, but then they come in here and you can see right here, our auto letters function. It's the fourth column, third row down right here next to historical drawings and our camera. And then they'll come here and they'll actually send it. If I don't have time to go and log in on a browser and go to pending and actually send that letter, I want to go ahead and send it now. So now I'm going to come in here. I'm going to add my contact. I'm going to add my outbound referral. And you can see make my keyboard go down so we can see more. Here's my letter. I can come in here. I can remove any information I don't want. I can add any information I do want. Down at the bottom, the same check boxes. Okay, if I want to include a HIPAA cover sheet, if I want to include the face sheet, I can also add attachments and all that. Okay, notice up in the top right corner, okay, I have a print. I have a save to queue, which if I did that, I would have to go log in on a browser and actually send it. But also there is a send. And when I hit that send, that will send that fax from the iPad. All right, so just the biggest thing with the auto letters, referrals. There's also thank you for your referrals. If you would like to use the thank you for your referrals, I can hit add plans here and they work pretty much the same. I'm going to go ahead and search in here. There are thank you for your referrals. Hopefully it pops up. Likes to embarrass me in front of my friends. But there's a thank you for your referral in here. Plan, not sure why it's not coming up. They work exactly like the referral letter. You would add a contact and you'd send that thank you letter. And those are also customized inside of Firm Admin. So that rounds out auto letters. Okay, so the last thing we have to go over is our consents. Okay, so let's say I'm seeing this patient. Okay, and for whatever reason, I need this patient to sign one of my consents. Okay, so I'm going to come up and I'm going to click on my More button. And you will see in the very top right, there is a consents. So when this opens up, you can see at the top, it's set to personal consents. You will not have personal consents. We never really show how to set up personal consents because you want anybody to be able to access the consents. If you set up personal consents, only that one person will ever be able to pull it up to have anybody sign their consent. So all of yours set up in Firm Admin will be accessed via practice consents. And let's say I want to do some punctal plugs on this patient. I'm just going to click on it. Now on the top right, I will select next. And just like with the waivers, I'm going to scroll down. And I'm going to hit sign form. And I'm going to sign away. Once you hit save, this is now a part of their document. So I could click on documents and view it there, or I can jump back if I'm used to this view. I can hit view, and there you go. Here's our consent on the browser. You can go, just because this was signed on the iPad. Now, if you go to the browser, you would be able to go to the attachments, and you'll see this consent there also. All right. And that brings us up to the end. Let me switch over and we will see if we have any questions.
Doesn't look like we have any questions today, Jonathan. You covered everything.
Oh, wow.
So if you want to go back to the PowerPoint.
Yep.
Just give us a second.
All right. Are you viewing the PowerPoint?
Not yet.
Okay.
There we go. Just want to remind everyone that, there's lots of training available. Check our other learning options like documentation, tutorials, and walkthroughs, role-based training, additional training webinars, one-on-one virtual training, and on-site training or consultations. You can always go and learn more at eyefinity.com/education. And with that, Jonathan, thank you so much for your valuable time and sharing the information with us. And thank you to everybody who attended this event. In spite of your busy schedules, you took the time to be with us today, and we really appreciate it. This concludes our presentation, everybody, and thank you again.